If you like this sorry ass excuse for a GTA radio soundtrack, then here are some albums that you need to check out. Number 1, we are starting off with the one and only Disclosure from their 2016 release. Caracal, however you say the title. This album was released in 2016 and it features some big hitters from the time back then and also now. To name a few, The Weeknd, you got Miguel, you've got Lord, and you've got some other phenomenal vocalists, including the one and only Guy. Or Howard, I believe. I think Howard sings. Howard on the album, who does a phenomenal job with his vocal delivery and just puts on a great performance when it comes down to the vocal range that he exhibits on this album. And this is the type of quality that I was hoping that would be on the Drake record. It's not like he couldn't have done it, but when you listen to this 2016 release, you automatically understand just how well these guys are good at treating their albums with the way the sonics are working. There's so many great examples of just how they engineer their tricks when it comes down to filling out the void of the track list. I'm trying to think of a couple examples off the top of my head. If you think about the track that features Miguel, Good Intentions, if you go to that, you'll see just the way they really pushed Miguel's vocals to the max, the way how hypnotic the instrumentals are on this album. It's just, they do such a phenomenal job, Disclosure, such a phenomenal job on this record of just really giving the listener who maybe hasn't really been exposed to this type of music, they really treat it like, we want you to really enjoy the experience. And it doesn't sound cheap by any means. It sounds very luxurious and exotic, and it just makes you feel great. So much so that I am going to have to also include for honorable mention Disclosure's album Settle, that dropped back in 2014. There are some great hits on this thing that still to this day bump. I'm not just talking about When a Fire Starts to Burn, the one that everybody knows, and I'm not just talking about Latch, the one that everybody also knows as one of their biggest singles of all time, obviously. But check those two out. The next one we are going to go into is the one and only JT, Justin Timberlake, Future Sex, Love Sounds. The reason why I incorporated this album is because I think this album does a really, really great job of giving you a mixed bag of experience when it comes down to dance music. And then not only that, it's not a strictly house-based album, but it finds itself doing really well what Drake's album failed to do, which is kind of give you a mix of experience as the listener when you're talking about the instrumentation and the dance feel records. It gives you a great implement, not only of the computerized sounding instrumental work, but it also gives you a lot of live instrumentation as well. If you listen to a lot of these tracks on this album, they do a hell of a job of giving you great, beautiful transition work with the instrumentation. I'm citing tracks like Love Stone. If you listen to the way the interludes come in, like I said, they just give you a great experience when it comes down to the live instrumentation. And when it comes down to giving you, it's not an album that takes itself too seriously. Justin finds himself dabbing into a lot of not only just strictly dance electronic music, but he has some fun with it. With Chop Me Up, he gets into a little bit of a hip hop bag, and it's really fun, and it's not to be taken too serious. I will say the lead single off of this album, Sexy Back, that has not aged the best. Justin Timberlake's vocals on Sexy Back definitely have not aged as much as they should have. Sure, it could still go off in a club, but I mean, like, the quality of them, it sounds very, very novice, and I think Justin If he were to look back on it, it would maybe it would be a little different. But hey, listen, this nigga Drake put a squeaky bed on Currents, and y'all fell for it. You'll be okay with auto-tune Justin Timberlake for Sexy Back. Just listen to the album. Next album is going to be Daft Punk, Homework. This album right here, if you have never heard house or dance in its full at its full capacity, I want to say that Daft Punk did a really, really great job at the time and still today. There are a lot of great records on here. Phoenix, Alive, Revolution 99, The Funk. A lot of these tracks on this album really give you more of the feel of what great house music is represented by. These guys were at that time in the realm of great what a lot of French musicians were doing at the time when it came down to the dance house movement. They were in the middle of that, and that's why you hear this album being talked about so much if you are in the dance or house scene. So you definitely do get some good implementation of live instrumentation, so much so to the point sometimes you don't know. Sometimes I had a hard time figuring out, listening to this album, hey, did they sample that, or is that something that they really went in and played? Daft Punk does sample quite a bit, but I'm saying this album is so good that sometimes you really kind of blur the lines of what was sampled, what the duo actually performed, whether it be on the computer or if they got somebody to obviously go into the studio and do it for them. Great listen. We're getting more into the instrumental type of dance, sort of like carried tracks when it comes down to albums now, so you're gonna notice that when you go to listen to these. The last album that I am going to recommend that you listen to is the one and only random album title, deadmau5. deadmau5 is one of the kings of dance, electronic, progressive house music that we are still privileged to be able to say that we can listen to today. If you listen to any deadmau5 album, especially in the earlier part of his career, excuse me, this album proves that deadmau5, the way he goes in and produces a track, he wants to really, really make you zone into a trance, put you in the most comfortable spot, but also give you a head nodding experience that's like no other. Your car is gonna sound like the best dance concert when it comes down to this album. This album does such a great job with the melody work. One of my favorite tracks off of this album to this day that I still listen to is gonna be Alone With You. I just love how much the melodies collide on this thing to give me that forever classic, soothing, just constant flow of just oh my God, what am I listening to? You also have classics like Faxing Berlin, which is another one that deadmau5 is famous for one of his biggest tracks. He's got a lot of them, but Faxing Berlin is just such a hypnotic piece of instrumentation, and the way the atmosphere, the way deadmau5, he does the same thing, treats the atmosphere like it's his own kid, and he just raises it and gives you such a phenomenal cinematic, joyful roller coaster ride of Sonic. So I know that if you were listening to the Honestly Nevermind, if you are a Drake fan and you heard that album and you probably didn't really hear a lot of what they would consider decent quality house music, quality dance music, some of y'all for the first time would say that it's fire, and that's understandable. But when you listen to these albums that I named on this list, you will definitely give yourself that justice of knowing the difference between good quality and performance when it comes down to the actual artists who are performing, and when it comes down to, you know, having a quality good time as well. So check those out, and do me a favor, drop in the comments below, if you're on this video, what you would swap out for my 5 that I named here. I thought that this was a decent list, but maybe you have a better list. You could drop it in the comments below. I will be interacting, and thank you guys for stopping by. This has been Shuby for Still Slaps.
That slaps.